On September 1st, 1939, Nazi Germany invaded Poland, marking the beginning of the Second World War. After defeating the Polish army, the Germans brutally oppressed the Polish population, whom they regarded as racially inferior. In the weeks following the invasion, SS units, police, and the military executed thousands of Polish civilians, including members of the nobility, clergy, and intelligentsia. The Nazis sought to eradicate Polish culture and national identity, eliminating any potential resistance by systematically arresting and murdering Poles. Germany intended for Poland to serve as an endless source of slave labor and as a key location for the mass extermination of Europe's Jewish population. Just one day after the invasion, on September 2, 1939, the Nazis established the first German concentration camp outside their borders, Stutthof. One of its most notorious guards would later be a young woman named Jenny Wanda Barkmann. Jenny Wanda Barkmann was born on May 30, 1922, in Hamburg, then part of the Weimar Republic, the name of Germany's government between 1918 and 1933. Her family lived in poverty. Her father worked as a dock laborer, while her mother stayed home to care for the family. As a child, Jenny was much like any other girl her age. She loved playing with dolls and dreamed of becoming an actress or model someday. She was only 10 years old when Adolf Hitler and his Nazi party rose to power in January 1933. Under the control of Joseph Goebbels, the new Ministry of Propaganda created a cult of personality around Hitler, portraying him as Germany's flawless savior. Propaganda soon dominated every aspect of German life: press, film, radio, and public spaces. Portraits and statues of Hitler appeared everywhere, and countless streets and squares were renamed in his honor. In public, Germans were expected to praise Hitler and give the so-called German greeting, *Heil Hitler*, star. Schools played a vital role in spreading Nazi ideology. From the first day of class, children were taught loyalty to Hitler and obedience to the state. His portrait hung in every classroom. Textbooks glorified militarism, racism, and anti-Semitism, while censoring opposing ideas. Growing up in an evangelical household, Jenny too fell under the influence of Nazi ideology. After completing elementary school, she found work in a pastry shop. By the time the Second World War began on September 1, 1939, Jenny was 17. That same month, the Germans set up Stutthof concentration camp in a wooded area west of the town of Stutthof, about 22 miles east of Gdańsk, now known as Gdańsk in Poland. The first camp, later called the Old Camp, was enclosed by barbed wire and contained 8 barracks built by prisoners in 1940. Stutthof was part of the Nazis' broader campaign of ethnic cleansing, aimed at eliminating Poland's cultural, religious, and political elite. Even before the war, German authorities had compiled lists of individuals to be arrested and had already begun scouting potential sites for concentration camps. Initially, Stutthof operated as a civilian internment camp under the control of the Danzig police chief. In November 1941, it was converted into a labor education camp for political prisoners and those accused of violating work regulations, administered by the German Security Police, SD. By January 1942, Stutthof was officially transformed into a regular concentration camp under SS command. In 1943, the camp was significantly expanded with 30 new barracks and electrified fences. That same year, a crematorium and a gas chamber were constructed, just in time for Stutthof to become part of the Nazi final solution in June 1944. The gas chamber could hold up to 150 people per execution. Eventually, Stutthof evolved into a vast system of forced labor camps, with 105 subcamps spread across northern and central occupied Poland. Tens of thousands, perhaps as many as 100,000, were deported there, most of them non-Jewish Poles. Conditions were horrific. Disease, starvation, and brutality claimed countless lives. Typhus epidemics swept the camp in the winters of 1942 and 1944. Prisoners deemed too weak or ill to work were sent to the gas chamber, where gassing with Zyklon B began in June 1944. Around 4,000 people, including Jewish women and children, were murdered in the chamber before the camp's evacuation. Camp doctors also killed the sick and wounded with lethal injections of phenol. By the end of the war, More than 60,000 people had perished in Stutthof and its subcamps. The camp was staffed by SS guards and, from 1943 onward, Ukrainian auxiliaries. According to some sources, when Jenny Wanda Barkmann arrived at Stutthof in January 1944 as a camp guard, she was already the mother of an illegitimate child. The child's father was reportedly a German soldier, and while Jenny served at Stutthof, her mother cared for the baby at home. Barkman later recalled that during a 10-day training course for female concentration camp guards, the SS officer in charge told them coldly, "Do not pity the prisoners. They are only Slavs." Before she joined the SS, Jenny had dreamed of using her looks to become a model. But her beauty, combined with her cruelty, soon earned her the chilling nickname among prisoners, the beautiful spectre. Others called her simply Mad Jenny. She became notorious for her brutality, mercilessly beating prisoners, sometimes to death, with her bare hands or with a whip. Even children were among her victims. Together with their mothers, she would select them for the gas chamber, often with a cold detachment that horrified witnesses. One of her preferred methods of torture was to strike female prisoners with a stick or leather strap. Later, she admitted, "We in the SS used to hold long open-air roll calls in winter so that the women would freeze, and indeed, many of them died. We were dressed warmly, so the frost did not bother us." Although she worked at Stutthof for only a short time, the prisoners never forgot her. Former inmate Maria Sinberg testified that she saw Barkman savagely beating women while they were bathing. Another survivor, Sawicka, recalled, "I once asked her if I could take a potato lying on the floor of the barn. She was off duty that day. In response, she slapped me and struck me over the head with a stick. She also beat my friend Judah unconscious when she tried to take potatoes from the cellar. Judah died the next day." There were hundreds of such cases. During the typhus epidemic of 1944, which peaked in December, around 9% of the entire camp population perished. Barkman later remembered, "Before the epidemic, in the section of the camp where I worked, about 15 to 40 women died every day. Later, there were so many corpses that the crematorium couldn't keep up. The bodies were burned in open piles." The evacuation of prisoners from the Stutthof camp system in northern Poland began in January 1945. At that time, nearly 50,000 prisoners were held within its network, the vast majority of them Jews. Around 5,000 inmates from subcamps were marched to the Baltic coast, forced into the freezing water, and machine-gunned. The rest were driven west toward Lauenburg in Germany. Cut off by advancing Soviet forces, the survivors were forced back to Stutthof. Marching through bitter winter conditions and enduring relentless abuse from SS guards, thousands perished along the way. By late April 1945, the remaining prisoners were removed from Stutthof by sea, as the camp had been completely surrounded by Soviet troops. Once again, hundreds were forced into the water and shot. It is estimated that more than 25,000 prisoners, roughly half of those evacuated, died during this final operation. When Soviet forces liberated Stutthof on May 9, 1945, they found only about 100 survivors, those who had managed to hide during the camp's final evacuation. In total, nearly 100,000 prisoners passed through Stutthof, 60,000 died, and another 22,000 were transferred to other concentration camps. Jenny Wanda Barkmann fled Stutthof in January 1945 and managed to hide for 4 months. During the final battles for Gdańsk, she tried to escape the advancing Soviet troops, but was captured by Polish militia in May 1945 at the Gdańsk railway station. At her first interrogation, Jenny claimed she had always treated Jewish prisoners kindly, that she had never abused anyone, and even insisted she had secretly helped inmates escape death. Her lies, however, did not save her. Barkman was tried during the first Stutthof trial, which began on April 25, 1946. Dozens of survivors testified against her, but Jenny seemed unconcerned. She appeared far more interested in her looks than in her fate. Even as witnesses recounted her crimes, Barkman adjusted her hair and smiled. Her own defense attorney admitted she was guilty, arguing only that she must have been mentally ill because no sane person could commit such atrocities. Still, Barkman wore fashionable clothes, changed her hairstyle daily, and was said to flirt with her guards. Along with several other female defendants, she reportedly laughed and joked during the trial. When the proceedings ended on May 31st, 1946, 11 defendants, 5 of them women, were sentenced to death by hanging for crimes against humanity. Among them were Wanda Klaff, Gerda Steinhoff, Elizabeth Becker, Ava Paradis, and Jenny Wanda Barkmann. While the others wept and begged for mercy, Barkman, who had just turned 20 for the previous day, remained composed and indifferent. After being found guilty, she neither cried nor asked for forgiveness. Her only comment was, "Life is indeed a pleasure, and pleasures are usually short." Her execution was public, a grim spectacle captured by official photographers. After the war, only 3 public executions of Nazi war criminals took place in Poland. One of them was held at Biskupia Gorka Hill near Gdańsk, formerly Danzig. On July 4, 1946, as 200,000 people watched, 11 war criminals from Stutthof, including the 24-year-old Jenny Wanda Barkmann, were hanged before the eyes of history. That day, Biskupia Gorka Hill was under what felt like a siege. 3 days earlier, newspapers had announced the date of the execution. Workplaces declared a day off, even arranging transportation so employees could attend. Anyone who wished could come and witness it. Authorities feared the crowd might erupt into a lynching, and both militia and army forces struggled to maintain control over the enormous throng. It was July 4th, a warm summer day, with the sun shining brightly. At exactly 5 p.m., 11 open trucks rolled onto the execution site, each carrying a prisoner with their hands and legs bound by rope. On the platform of each truck stood one of the condemned, 6 men and 5 women in total. The trucks were backed up beneath the gallows, and the prisoners were ordered to stand on the tailboards or on the chairs where they had been sitting. Former inmates of Stutthof, dressed once again in their striped uniforms, had volunteered to act as executioners. They placed simple rope nooses around the necks of those about to die. The execution had been planned so that once each truck pulled forward, the prisoners would be left hanging, but not from a great height. The ropes didn't break their necks. Instead, the condemned slowly suffocated, dying a painful death that lasted between 10 and 20 minutes. When the driver of the first truck, carrying Johann Pauls, the former commandant of the Stutthof Guards, started his engine and moved forward, Pauls managed to shout, "Heil Hitler," before slipping from the platform. His cry was drowned out by the furious insults of the crowd. As his body went still, another truck drove off, leaving the next criminal to die in what witnesses grimly called a rope dance. Each prisoner had to watch the agony of those before them, knowing their turn was next. At one point, when a truck failed to start, a former prisoner pushed the condemned off the platform himself. The crowd cheered, shouting, "For our husbands, for our children." When the last body fell still, the guards allowed the people to approach the gallows. They tore off buttons, cut away pieces of clothing, and kicked the corpses in rage. Only after this chaos were the onlookers driven away and the bodies removed. But this grim spectacle left deep scars. Some children began hanging their toys, and in tragic imitation, a few even hanged other children after witnessing the execution. Afterward, rumors spread that once Jenny Wanda Barkmann's body was cremated, her ashes had been taken to Hamburg and flushed down the toilet of her birth home. That, however, was false. In reality, the bodies of those executed were taken to the Medical University of Gdańsk, where they were used as anatomical teaching material.